If you were to die today, if we were going to lose you today, Jeff, what message would you give to the next generation of youth who are going to be the leaders? What would you say?
Oh man, that's a tough and
Uh,
loaded question, brother.
hey, I got to do what I got to do.
You know, life is all about challenges, right? No one's life is easy. And we forget that everybody's fighting their own demons, their own battles in some way. And so something I learned a long time ago that I cannot say how powerful this is. I think it's one of the most powerful things is that life is only 10% what happens to you.
Right.
It's 90% how you respond.
So first, I'm excited to be here for a number of reasons. Obviously, the Unstoppable brand continues to put out content, university through adversity. And I'm excited to have Jeff Barnes on the line. I believe some of the stuff he's getting ready to share with us, which is so powerful, that you guys can tune in and hopefully become educated. Jeff, how you feeling, man? How you doing first?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me here. I appreciate it, Derrick.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just excited to have you as a guest because some of the stuff that we're getting ready to talk about is, conversations that need to be happening that people are afraid to have, but we got to be strong enough and have enough courage to get into it to provide solutions. So before we get started, give us a little bit of background on you so everybody can get educated on who you are.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I started my career a long time ago running a nuclear power plant on a submarine for the Navy. I was a scuba diver. I was in charge of the machinery division, the engine room. Left that after 6 years, went into corporate risk management consulting and financial services, working for one of the largest companies in the world. And over the course of a dozen years, I ended up having my own division, and my job was to go out there and find innovative ideas and technology that we could then roll into the corporate landscape. So that involved developing a business use case, a proof of concept, pilot programs, and so on. And then eventually we would either partner with, invest in, or acquire these companies if we liked what we saw. And over the course of about $1 billion in transactions through the number of networks I worked in, I wasn't getting paid anything extra. So I decided, all right, it's time for me to leave this. I'm done with this. At the time, my wife and I, we'd started up a chiropractic and a functional medicine practice, and I'd been doing some dabbling as consulting on the side and some entrepreneurial things. And we got our practice to about 7 figures, and I said, all right, cool, I can jump. I'm out. I left the corporate world in October of 2018 and acquired a company called Angel Investors Network. Um, and 2 months later, my wife and I got a divorce. So
Wow,
I
wow.
went from this, having this whole grand plan, everything figured out, and the nice house and the nice cars and the
Right,
lifestyle, and
right.
traveling everywhere, and all of a sudden, okay, I got to go, make this company that I just acquired work, which it was kind of limping along at the time, and we ended up in a situation where I invested in a company. We went from zero to $17 million in sales in about 8 months.
Gotcha.
And that was great. That was wonderful. But then the rug got pulled right out from underneath us. That business went from doing about $3 million a month in revenue with a 10, 15% margin to out of business within 45 days.
Wow.
And so you talk about adversity, I went through a divorce. I gave up my house. I had to move into an apartment. I didn't have my job, my health care anymore. I didn't have my family, my lifestyle that I was used to. The business that I bought was struggling. The business that I helped scale failed, and then we had COVID on top of that.
Right.
Um, so from like the end of 2019 through about 2022, my life was just upended over and over and over again.
Wow.
Number of different things happened during that time, but and we persevere, right? We kick back to it and keep pushing on, and so things are on the upswing right now. Everything's going well, but it wasn't fun for a while.
No, well, first and foremost, man, and I appreciate you being that transparent and that open. And, unfortunately, like you just said, there's always going to be adversity in our lives. I don't care what we try to do. And, I'm excited that you're being willing to share that because as you can imagine, sometimes we deal with stuff that we don't see coming. And when it shows up, you got to be willing to do a couple of things. And I really want you to talk about, how did you overcome first losing the person that you were invested with, your wife? Talk about that first, because I know, and you see how I am, because I'm going through a divorce, so I already know, and I want to steal some information from you, because I want to figure out how to do it for myself, to be totally honest. So talk
Sure.
about that.
Yeah, man. So, before I go right into that, let me give a little bit more backstory here. So when I was growing up, my parents struggled big time. Like we were literally homeless for a little while.
Mm,
Didn't have a place to live, relying on the kindness of friends to give us a place to stay on the couch, living in motels, living in,
wow.
broke down trailers that, on somebody else's property. And through it all, my parents managed to stay together.
Right.
And I look back now as a grown up, adult who has two kids of my own, wondering, I don't know how they did it, right? But I saw, and they went through crisis after crisis in the 90s and even into the 2000s. And, it was miserable for our family for a while, but my parents persevered. And so I think that kind of gave me this idea that no matter what, you stay married, right?
So let me stop you. I got to stop you real quick, because I'm in that same space. So I agree 100%. Like, regardless of if you got money, or if you're struggling, or if you're homeless, if you can't eat, whatever, you should stay connected, because there's a loyalty piece that makes you guys just grind it out. Sorry, I had to jump in, because you already could tell I'm
Yeah.
passionate about it, because I believe that our society is struggling because everybody's so selfish. But go, please, go, 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 go.
No, you're spot on, man. And I got married young. I got married when I was 25 years old, and I would never recommend that to anyone, right? Because you don't know yourself, right? I had just gotten
Right.
out of the military.
Right.
I was just kind of getting my feet wet in the real world, so to speak, as a civilian, and I didn't know who I was or what I really wanted. My entire life was kind of laid out before me for everybody else, by everybody else that up until that point. So I didn't really know who Jeff Barnes was. I didn't know what I wanted to do, what were the things I really liked versus I just liked it by association. And so we got together. She was in college, I was in the Navy. We ended up getting married. We stayed together for 15 years.
Okay.
And throughout that time, we kind of drifted apart a little bit. And I started realizing the things that I liked and the things I value in life, and they weren't the same things that she liked and she valued, and vice versa, right? And I don't think anyone was really to blame in our situation. It wasn't
Sure.
like anyone was going out and going on a bender and cheating and, anything like that. It was just like two people that got together really, really early on and, decided this was going to work out, and we're really optimistic about the future. We ended up having a couple of kids, ran a business together, did all these things. And our ideas of what we wanted our lives to look like varied so greatly that it was really, really hard to bring it back together. So I finally got to this point, and we were suffering through, trying to go to counseling and doing all
Right.
these different things to kind
Right.
of make things work. And we were always of that same mind. You hear it, okay, stay together for the kids, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I lived through that, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tough it out. I'm not happy. She's not happy, but we're going to do this because we got to put on the good front for the kids. And at the time, my kids were 5 and 7,
Okay.
and
They were young.
they were young. They were young, and I was like, I'm not being honest with myself. I'm not being the best father I can be. I'm
Right.
not being the best provider I can be. I'm just ornery and angry. And because of that, I'm taking it out on other people in ways that I shouldn't. And I was like, I'm not happy. And is that really the kind of role model I want to be for my kids?
Man, that's big right
And
there. That's big.
it's
Sorry.
hard, man, right? Because you want to be loyal. You said these vows. You want to have this loyalty to this person,
Yes.
but things weren't working out. And
Right.
so we're both miserable. And we finally said, I remember the day I'm sitting down just working and grinding out. And she comes in the office and sits down on the floor. And we kind of had a fight the night before and we weren't really talking. And she goes, well, what do you want? I was like, I just want to know, do you even want to do this anymore? And she said, no. I said, okay, that's all I need to know.
Right.
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 And that's hard. That's a hard conversation to have. And I probably put it off for more years than I care to admit.
Right. Right. No, first and foremost, man, I appreciate your transparency, Jeff, because, especially as men, because, we're providers. We take care of people. We love on people. Like that's what we do. Believe me,
Hmm.
I'm an alpha male. Don't be fooled. I got alpha
Yeah.
written all over me. But on the other side of that, it's hard to face the reality when you feel like um, people don't see value in you. And if you're not happy and they're not happy and you're doing it just for the kids, it's hard to take off that mask and really be authentic to who you really are. And believe me, I had to do that too. I had to do that too. And
Hmm.
so it's hard. But on the other side, I always think about it like this, and I want to say two things, and then I'm gonna give it back to you in a second. Like I realized I'm 52 years old. Men normally live to be 70. That means I got 18 years left on the clock. How am I going to live my last 18? See what I'm saying? I'm not
Hmm.
playing around. And there's things that I want to do that I put off because I was trying to make other people happy. I don't think that's how we should live our lives because I don't think that's being authentic. And then the other thing I want to say, because it really relates to me. So um, I have a brother who served in the military, special ops, 22 years, retired, unbelievable person. And once me and my wife got divorced, my family stopped talking to me. And that's hard because then you start thinking about how important relationships are that you have known your entire life that ghost you. So I want you to talk about that if you can. Sorry, and you can tell I get passionate because
Yeah.
whenever I do stuff, I'm one of them dudes. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, it is weird, right? Going through that because so many people know you as a unit and you're always this unit and they know what to expect from the two of you,
Right.
but they don't really know what to expect of just you. And so I
Right.
ended up losing friends, not because of any falling out or anything like that, but it was like, hey, all of a sudden Jeff's out there dating. I don't want my husband hanging out with this guy.
Right.
He's the wild and single dude now.
Right.
Maybe we shouldn't go hang, and you got to remember when you get divorced, all of a sudden you don't have the kids all the time like you're
Oh,
used
no
to.
question. No question. Hold on.
And
Let me stop you. Let me stop you for 1 second. You look good, just so you know. You look good.
well, I appreciate it, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate
for
it.
real. For real.
But yeah, it was one of those situations that, yeah, I didn't know who was going to be on my side, quote unquote, or who was going to be on hers. And I didn't really care, really. Um, but what it did allow me to do was really get to know myself because just
Mm,
like my family was all on my side and they saw it and they saw the things that happened during the divorce and shortly thereafter. And it was like, all right, there was some stuff going on that I probably didn't know about.
sure.
Um, but it was one of those situations that, you know, it's where you find out who truly loves you and who really is on your
Man,
side,
man, I
right?
love that, Jeff. I love that because, and I love what you said earlier. You got a chance to find out more about yourself than anything. And that's what I've been doing in my process. But I want to give you a little bit of background, then I want to shift gears and talk about the suicide ideation. So for me, I've had resources, I've done really good stuff. I've had a great journey, but I got extremely sick. When I say I got sick, should have been dead on 8 occasions. Brain
Mhm.
aneurysm, cellulitis, 2 strokes, heart surgery, defibrillator, back surgery, suicide ideation, COVID-19. And people refer to me as the modern day Job. And so if you see me right now, I don't look like that. But when I was going through it, right?
Mhm.
It's a whole nother deal, as you can imagine, going
Yeah.
through that process. And when I had my back surgery, and I want to say this because I want you to speak on this because I think it's relevant. I sat in a reclining chair for 3 months, couldn't move. Okay. Nerve pain in my leg, couldn't get out of the chair. Um, During COVID, calling to have food, brought into my house so I could eat. Like I was literally a bloody mess, mate.
Man.
But that's when I learned, like you said, who's gonna be there when things get crazy.
Hmm.
Because my family went on vacation and I had a 380 gun in the side of my chair and I set it on my lap. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm such a spiritual person that I prayed to God before I did anything. And I want to make sure I tell you this, and then I'm gonna let you share your thoughts. But when I prayed to God, I asked God, is this how my story ends? And literally, he said, I have so much more in store for you. I took the gun, put it back in the side of the chair, and now we're having this interview. So
Absolutely. That's
please,
awesome, man.
yeah, tell me your experience in that space, because I think we need to be having conversations about how relevant suicide is, even for people who have already had success.
Oh man. Honestly, I think it's the people, so I was a scuba diver. I was at the top of my game when I was in my 20s. I pushed hard. I was an athlete when I was in high school, but I ruined my shoulder in high school, so I couldn't play ball like I wanted to,
Gotcha.
right? Went in the military and worked with some of the best of the best. Going through dive school, you're working with guys that have gone through Ranger and Airborne and
Right,
all these
right.
different things. And so you're, kind of an elite in that skill, that segment of the military, right? And when you are an A-type personality, like driven, relentless, as Tim Grover says, when you are relentless to pursuing a goal, then essentially everything else falls by the wayside, right? You think about back during your training, when you're in your career, not just if you're playing pro or you're playing at the top level, but to get there, right?
Oh, no
Nothing,
question. No
nothing
question.
else matters, right? Literally nothing else matters. That's you have a goal in mind, and you look at the guys that are playing ball. We're here on Sun or no, today's Saturday, right? So on a Sunday, all the guys in the NFL are out there playing. They're top of their game. Nothing
Right,
else matters while they're on the field, right?
right, right.
Same thing when you're in the military. The only thing that matters is the mission at hand. And for me, when I got taken out of the military, I already knew I wanted to do so many more things in my life. So I didn't go through this massive amount of depression at that point in my life,
Gotcha.
which is where a lot of guys do, right? Because what ends up happening is, and it's the same thing in the professional sports world, is you have your skill set and you are known and loved for this skill set because you're at the top of your game.
Right.
You're also going through all these different battles, right? With a bunch of people around you. And so you're living through it. You think about war. I mean, if you watch any of the old, any of the
Oh,
movies
yeah.
of the old wars, right? These guys are in battle. All they care about is surviving and keeping each other alive, right? And they're in it, and nothing else matters. And then all of a sudden, you're taken out of that.
Mm,
And for me, one of the easiest way for people, I think, to really internalize this that have never gone through it is in the movie Hurt Locker, right? In this movie Hurt Locker, this guy's job, Jeremy Renner plays this guy who's on the bomb squad, and I have friends that are EOD, and this is what they did or do for a living is defuse bombs so other people don't die. I
gotcha.
mean, literally, you're a millisecond away from death at any moment, and your job is to keep everybody else around you safe. And then he comes home and he's got a wife and he's got a kid, and she say, "Hey, can you go get the cereal?" Right? And he's in the cereal aisle, and there's nothing but just a wall to wall of 20,000 different types of cereal. And it's like, man, the stuff I'm dealing with out there versus these things, like the hard decision I have to make right now is what kind of food to buy, but
Right.
it's all right here versus me, like, I have to survive long enough to even get the food and like the whole thought process that goes into this. And so what I think a lot of people don't realize is that when you are that driven, you are that relentless, you are that in it, nothing else matters because you have a job to do and you have people that are relying on you and counting on you, and you're counting on them to do their jobs too, right? It's not just
Absolutely.
one-sided.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden you get taken out of that and you're shown this world where, hey, you don't even have to try that hard. And there's not really a big mission, right? Most people are just wandering aimlessly through
Yeah,
life.
they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah, and so you go all of a sudden you're like, hey, so what's your purpose? And they're like, oh, what do you mean by purpose? Like I go to work, I come home, I have a few beers, I watch the game, that's what I do, that's my life. And you're like, I can't even relate to that. I
Right.
can't because my lifestyle was if things go wrong, people die, right? And
Right.
so I'm always used to being switched on, as they would say.
Right. No, no, you don't have to tell me. I'm with you because I'm switched on too, as you probably could tell from our conversation.
Yeah. And people don't get it, right? Most people do not get it. And so, I've been depressed. I've been in dark places. I've punched holes in walls. I've done stupid things. Luckily, I've never gotten to that point where, I thought about ending my own life, luckily, but I had friends that actually did.
Yeah.
And the friends that did, it's like I got a call from one of my friends that I went through school with 20 plus years ago. And he's like, "Hey, man," and I'd just gotten remarried in 21. And it was during COVID, so we had to have minimal people at our wedding. We
Sure.
couldn't invite
Sure.
everybody we wanted to,
Right.
right? And I get a call right after I get married. I was like, "Hey, what's up, man? It's been a while since we talked, Mike." He goes, "Yeah, dude. So I don't know if you know this, but Jeremy's celebration of life is happening in a couple weeks." Like, what? What do you
Right.
mean? Like, this is one of my best friends for over 20 years,
Mm,
and I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and he
mm.
only lived like an hour and a half from me. I didn't even know he moved up here near me. I knew he was going to, but I didn't know it had happened yet, and I hadn't seen him yet, and that hit me like a ton of bricks. Two
I'm
beautiful
sure.
baby girls, beautiful wife, retired from the military, and just one day after having a couple of drinks, just right before a softball game, decided to go down and eat a bullet.
Mm,
And I couldn't wrap my head around that for the longest time. And I kept, there's things everybody does, right? Oh, I should have reached out. I should have talked to him. Maybe I can, that's not going to help anyone.
right.
But what I do know, working with vets, we have a nonprofit called Advancing the Line for Veterans that my buddy Zach runs. We have a company called Patriot Growth Capital, which all helps veterans become business owners and own their own business. Um, One thing I have learned is that it's a matter of creating purpose after the military, right? Or mission after the military is what we
Yes.
say.
Yes.
And most people, they had a purpose, they had a mission, even if they weren't like really clear on what the mission was per se, as in the military. Like if you're playing ball, what's the mission? It's to win the championship at the end of the
Right.
season, right?
Right.
Everything
Right.
you do is towards that. And just because you won the championship doesn't mean like Jordan was back at work the next day after winning his
Getting it
trophies, right?
in. Getting it in.
Kobe, same thing, right? And when you're in that mindset, you're always grinding. And so
Right.
all of a sudden to be taken out of that and then just like wandering aimlessly with the rest of the sheep in the world, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so not only do you not know what you're doing, but you can't even talk to the people around you, right?
Right.
Because I'm sure it's the same way with you. Like if I get together with my boys, we talk about the crap that we did back in the day, and we're always laughing. It's
Right.
hysterical. And all the
Right.
wives are like, "What are you talking about? Go away. We don't want to talk to hear this."
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you need that cathartic release by being around those people that you lived through stuff with, because going to battle with somebody at your back that's hard to beat, right? When you come out on the other end.
Well, and again, one, I appreciate you being that open, but people don't understand the camaraderie that exists when
Hmm.
you can connect with people who you have experienced life or death with. And
Yeah.
remember, like I said, give you some more history on me. Like I played against Kobe. I played in the LA Pro Am League at Long Beach State, top player. Like I've had a great career, but on the other side of that, I didn't make it to the league, but there was still a connection because I knew how hard it was to get
Yeah.
to the top level. So it wasn't like I didn't make it there. I
Yeah.
did make it there. I just didn't make it at that, at that level is my point.
Hmm.
My point is like, I understand like there was work that happened that people don't know that existed. And so similar to what you just said, like when you have been, stopping bombs from exploding and you're making decisions that impacts other people's lives, and then you get done with that, and then you just got to find out what you're having for dinner. You like, what's going on? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on right now? And so, I just want to say a couple of things because first and foremost, Jeff, this interview is so powerful. You have no idea how many people are going to be empowered and feel comfortable about building trusted relationships to have these type of conversations because that's how
Good.
it's supposed to be,
Hmm.
FYI. But every time I do a show, at the end, I ask everybody the same question, and I'm gonna ask you the same question right now. So If you were to die today, if we were going to lose you today, Jeff, what message would you give to the next generation of youth who are going to be the leaders? What would you say?
Oh man, that's a tough and loaded question, brother.
Hey, I got to do what I got to do.
You know, life is all about challenges, right? No one's life is easy. And we forget that everybody's fighting their own demons, their own battles in some way. And so something I learned a long time ago that I cannot say how powerful this is. I think it's one of the most powerful things is that life is only 10% what happens to you.
Right.
It's 90% how you respond.
No question.
And you went through medical stuff. I've been through some medical things. Same thing. Like doctors have told me you should be dead right now. There's no way you should be alive. That kind of stuff. Well, what am I going to do? Like, curl up in a ball and cry about it? No, man. You get back to it. Business failed. Oh, that really sucked. But you know what? I'm still above ground. What am I going to do about it? I didn't make the team. I didn't get the girl. Whatever. I lost all the money. Whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
And bad stuff happens. It's going to keep happening. But how are you going to respond?
Man, if you had a microphone, you could drop the mic right there, Jeff. That's real. That's real. Because I agree with you 100%. And two things that resonate with what you just said, like our young people right now mentally aren't as strong as we are because we've already faced it. And now our kids are watching stuff on, Instagram and TikTok, and they're delusional about what's really going on, and they can't handle real adversity. I mean, that's just what it is. That's just what it is.
It's hard too. And here's the hard part about that, right? It's not their fault. It's 100% not their fault. It's their parents' fault. It's society. It's the admin and the buildings are saying, oh, don't ever, insult anybody. Don't ever, if you hurt their feelings. Like we grew up, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Right?
Yes.
Like you don't hear that anymore. And so the parents have, and this is hard. This is hard as a dad, right? And I just got done coaching Little League, but I got to do this all the time. It's like, I got to stop telling them how to be safe and telling them what to do and let them struggle and learn on their own. Otherwise, they never will.
Man, and the reality is if you don't prepare them in that fashion, you're undermining them for their own personal success. Believe me, I'm very aware. And so two things I would love for you to do. You can speak it into the universe, your website, and share any information you feel relevant. And then we'll end the show, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. So anybody can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time on the social stuff. But angelinvestorsnetwork.com is my main business. And then if you're curious about the nonprofit for the vets, it's atlvets.org.
All right. I appreciate you. You've been unbelievable. And it's a pleasure. And hopefully, where are you based at?
I'm up in the Seattle area.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get a chance to meet in person at some point, but I appreciate it.